In the beginning, there was...
The Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the conservative atheist podcast that's not afraid to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Every week, your hosts, Cephus and Mike, will take on the latest religious and political news and examine the world around us from a distinctly conservative and skeptical perspective. Join us now for this episode of the Bitchspot Report. Welcome once again to the Bitchspot Report, the podcast that dares to combine atheism and conservatism in one handy 90-minute package. We're your hosts, Cephus and Mike, and we'll be taking over your computer or other electronic device, just like on The Outer Limits. We'd like to wish everyone a happy 4th of July, but we atheists are so joyless and miserable, we can't actually celebrate anything. What a shame. We hope that your otherwise horrible existence is no more horrible than normal. So away we go. So how's it going this week?
It's been going pretty good. Been taking a week off. Been getting some. I've got a ton of paper here that I've been between my other podcasts and this one. I'm finally kind of organizing and pitching out. So it's been productive. Let's put it that way.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I've been, last week or the week before, I went ahead and split up my blog into my atheist political stuff and then everything else. And I've realized now that splitting it up is only going to be twice as much work because I'm writing so much for both of them now. I'm going to be writing full-time for 2 blogs instead of just for one. So
right.
It kind of sucks. I didn't see that one coming. I thought I should have.
When I first got into this, I was thinking, I think I put together a couple blogs, and then it's like, you know what? I could barely put one together. I'm always doing some historical research. I'm doing all that stuff. I'm trying to do all that. And says, wait a minute. I can't even write some of this stuff. So that's why I kind of condensed it all into a podcast. So I don't have to do as much writing as I have to and stuff. You think, oh yeah, this is a great idea. I can do this, and you realize, hey, that's work,
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I write anyway, so it really doesn't make a difference. I went through and I had like 50 or 60 different stories that I was kind of lining up for the blog. So I went through and split those up and, moved them to the appropriate blogs. And then I started looking at them and started writing. And right now, I am scheduled on both blogs almost to the end of the month. That's writing 4 posts a week. Now, if I want to write anything else, I just have to start filling in the holes. So maybe I'll end up writing 30 posts a month per blog. And that's utterly insane. I was doing it before with just one blog, but holy crap.
Yeah.
But you do what you do,
Yeah, you come up with good ideas and you say, well, wait a minute, maybe that wasn't, early on I had a website and I thought, well, it'd be cool, these little subjects I come across and kind of local history things. And so I put together a page for the Seneca shipyards here in Illinois. There was Chicago Bridge and Iron had during the Second World War they had built LSTs. And my grandfather worked there, and my dad when he was a kid, used to watch them. They float them down to New Orleans, then they would load them up with stuff to take them to Europe, and then it was kind of neat how they did it. It was like totally improvised. It was a totally improvised operation, but it became so organized. They were producing, I forget the exact number, but there was like, they could do like 10 ships in a week when they were at full production, which is incredible because if you go to the site, there's no cranes, there's nothing. These people literally with tractors and cranes, the smaller cranes move these huge monster ships around. But I did a page for that. I did some Civil War things that people I'm related to. My mom's a genealogist, and she'd find these names. I'd go look them up and create a page for them. And it's like, then you realize, you find out more and trying to keep those all maintained and looking good. And it ended up being not as efficient as I thought it would be, creating a page and then, and it was the old fashioned, you run across those, really bad, especially the conspiracy pages, like, where it's just line after line after line after line of stuff, and there's no organization to the site type of, that was the sites I was building, and I'm like, this is garbage. I mean, and no one's going to take it seriously, and I'm not a professional HTML or, web designers, but even I know that there's design that has to go into it, and my sites had no design to them,
Yeah.
So it's like, so it was like learning. After a while, you learn the way you were doing it was not right, the right way to do it, and it happens,
You spend your first couple years doing it, learning how to do HTML, and then you find things like WordPress and Blogger and all that stuff and realize you don't have to do that anymore.
Exactly.
Create a new site in 5 seconds, and it looks 10 times better than what you've been spending weeks or months coding by yourself.
Right.
Yeah. I've forgotten more HTML than most people know.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to self-teach myself because I really don't have any professional need to develop websites, but I like dealing with some of the nuts and bolts and the stuff behind the scene type stuff. I mean, I'm trying to figure out PHP, CSS,
Right.
Things like that. And it's like, so I'm trying to do it by myself. And if I could bitch about one thing, I wish people who wrote documentation for some of this stuff would, make it a little bit more or being able to search it better. It's like, if you deal with anything with Linux, it's like, the guys it's usually the guys that write the code for whatever application you're dealing with are also doing the documentation. So they're thinking in terms of, they know this stuff, so they're assuming everyone else knows it. Well, that's not true. There's people like me who wants to learn how to do stuff, and, knowing the nomenclature or that saying, okay, I want to do this I want to do this. And I go, well, I type that in, and then you get a whole bunch of totally unrelated stuff. It's like, come on, it's got to be easier.
Well, you have to remember that most of the people in the Linux community are really writing for geeks who've been doing this for years and who are already programmers. So
right. That's it. I mean, that's the problem. And they can't see beyond the fact that there's people like me who would I like using it. I mean, I like tinkering with it. It's just, there's terminologies and there's concepts that, they know, but they won't tell us, or they don't know to tell us, that, I think that's probably more like it. It's, they don't know, hey, this does this is what we use this for, and, that kind of thing. Because, like I said, a lot of the documentation I've come across on, especially, and Linux is the worst. I want to do something, and it sounds like this will do it. And, but then you look it up, it's like, well, no, I don't want to get in. I don't want to rebuild the kernel. I want to, it's supposed to be able to do this, That's my learning curve, I guess.
Yeah.
Learn to speak Linux.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I used to multi-boot Linux years ago, and I got to the point where it was more of a pain to deal with Linux, and half the stuff didn't work anyway. I'm not on the computer to have to recode my operating system every 5 minutes. I'm there to actually get some work done.
Right.
And so after a couple of years, I just said, I'm booting more and more into Windows. I hate Windows, but it's at least usable. And I'm pretty much never booting into Linux. So let's just get rid of Linux and not worry about it. So I haven't really done anything. I mean, I used to multi-boot Debian and all the rest, but I don't think I've even looked at Linux for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I've got a machine, it's set up for Linux. It just has Linux server on it, and it was something I wanted to tinker with. And, the machine's so old, I actually, can't do much. That's what I liked about Linux. I can recycle old hardware. So I could put together a computer real quick, and I know I can run Linux on it because it'll run on anything. And, it's kind of like part of my, trying not to throw, good hardware. You spend a lot of money on this hardware for, get a video, upgrade your video cards and all this, I'll upgrade, computers, boards, so I can keep the old one, and I can say, yeah, I can throw Linux on there and tinker with it, but it is quite a pain to,
Yeah.
Especially when you get into, like, I got this Dell that, I think the bigger names, they seem to, they throw stuff in there that I guess does not react well with having Linux on the machine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, we used to have a central house server that was running Apache. I just took an old computer, I stripped everything else out, filled it with hard drives, and then everything in the house was sitting on that, and it talked well to everything. So, I had my internet connection running into it, and it would like split it out all over the house, and it was doing all kinds of really cool stuff. But that time is kind of gone. You don't really need any of that anymore.
Right.
Now with Wi-Fi, everything in the house is online all the time, and you don't need to worry about having a central server. All right, well, anyway, let's go ahead and get to the news. And now the news.
A scandal almost beyond imagination is about to crash over the Vatican here. It involves a homosexual prostitution ring with young teenage males and roughly 10 to 20 Roman clergy, including, according to initial reports, at least 4 bishops may also somehow be involved. Also related, the recruiter for the boy prostitution ring has reportedly stolen consecrated hosts and sold them to Satanists in and around Rome. This sounds like it's totally made up. It is absolutely what's going on right now. All of this has come to light, apparently, based on the testimony provided to Rome police and prosecutors, as well as video and pictures provided by this former priest who is convicted of sex abuse, who tried to come to the Vatican here and get reinstated as a priest after serving 5 years in Italian prison, but he was refused by the Vatican. Infuriated, reports are he blew the whistle on the whole sex ring and took pictures, video, and even one of the former male prostitute boys as a corroborating witness to the police and to the prosecutors. And to add to his credibility, he was reportedly accompanied by 2 senior Vatican clergymen who vouched for his story to the police and Roman authorities. Now, we cannot at this point confirm if the emergency meeting that was called at the Vatican 2 days ago by Pope Francis for the curial cardinals was related to this. So all we can ask you is at this point to stand by for more reports as details come to light. It seems apparent that at this point in Rome, authorities may soon be making some arrests, and some of them may involve clergy with ties to the Vatican. Stay tuned. Reporting from Rome, this is Michael Voris for ChurchMilitant.tv, suggesting we all pray very earnestly for the church at this point. God love you.
People were shocked this week when stories of a possible gay prostitution ring within the Vatican broke in Rome. The story centers around a former Catholic priest named Patrizio Poggi, who had been jailed for 5 years on sex abuse charges, but then went back to the Vatican and demanded his job back. When the Vatican refused, he went to Italian police and reported that the Vatican was involved in a gay sex ring and supposedly provided corroborating evidence, including one of the gay prostitutes' testimony. The Vatican, of course, denies any wrongdoing, and this is where things start to get a little weird. There are some reports that Poggi has been arrested for making false claims. Now, one thing about this is for sure, this is more bad publicity that the Vatican doesn't need.
Definitely. I was kind of going through the link here, and it's been all sorts of stuff. I mean, besides the pedophile priest, definitely there's been issues with the various workhouses in Ireland. There's all sorts of issues. Here's another one, and I'm kind of concerned about this particular site. My skeptical side of me is tingling a little bit on this.
Oh, I agree with you. There's some stuff up, and I'm not saying that this is a true story or a false story, but this is not the first time the Vatican has had these problems.
Well, they've always had these problems. They've had the problems. We know that there are problems. I know that there was I think recently there was something about that they actually own a house of prostitution.
Yeah.
And this really doesn't, the story doesn't surprise me if this turns out to be true. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah.
I'm just a little leery because I'm, looking at this and some of the links in this pointing to, I'm hoping fairly accurate. I want to be careful with this story. Let's put it that way.
Oh, absolutely. But as I was going through looking about this story, I was going to some Catholic forums, and they were talking about this story. There's a lot of conversation going on about this, but a lot of the Catholics are saying that the Catholic Church has never been involved in prostitution ever, and that's just complete bullshit.
It's that classic denial thing. Priests, we hold them to higher standards. They're pillars of the community. We don't question that. And that's always been the mentality of the diehard Catholics.
Yeah, but
and that's going to be, you're going to get that. I mean, that's so automatic. They're going to be, oh no, there's no way that this could be true. And the problem is, it probably is true. And and similar situations have happened that have been true. So, but they'll just sit there and deny. They just deny that, no, that's not possible. And, it's quite possible.
Yeah.
None of these guys can be held to any, they're human. I mean, they're going to do stupid crap, and this is one of them.
Yeah, but the problem is that they're denying history. I mean, go back, Pope Clement VI had a French palace that he used as a papal whorehouse.
Yeah.
That's an undeniable historical fact.
Yes.
Pope Sixtus IV in the 1400s, he ran a string of brothels out of the Vatican. You can't deny that. There was the sex ring busted up in 2010.
Yes.
Pope Benedict admitted that there was a gay lobby in the Vatican. But they're all sitting around going, nope, none of this stuff happens. It doesn't happen at all, because we cannot possibly believe anything bad comes out of the Vatican. These people are all a bunch of deniers of reality.
Right. Yeah. And that's what you're going to get, but this is the way they are, because I want to say to them, it's not possible. To them, it can't be possible that the church that preaches all this stuff is capable of doing or are capable of doing the things that they're telling us we can't do. I mean, it's definitely denial. I want to say, perhaps, it's just blind faith. To go to the fallback. They don't want to think that this is true. They don't want to believe that their church is capable of these horrendous crimes.
Yet the church proves over and over and over that they are.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we know that when Benedict left, he left a couple of really thick books for Pope Francis that detailed all of these things in the church. I don't think there's any chance in hell that, while this specific story might be wrong, it might be false, and I'm completely fine with that. But the idea that there is nothing going on in the Vatican, that there is no gay prostitution, that there's none of that stuff going on, we know that's not true. It's been admitted at the highest levels that it is true, yet you've got all these Catholics going, well, I don't believe it. The Pope says it's true. I still don't believe it because I refuse to believe anything bad about my church. People are idiots.
Yeah. And that's what you got. And that's what the church wants. I mean, they want people who won't think for themselves, who can't think beyond, here's the church, here's our doctrine, here's our dogma, here's our everything. And, you don't question it, so they don't question it. And when something like this happens, they won't question it. And I guess in some fairness, since we're still in the accusation stage / probably starting to move into prosecution or investigation. I think it sounds like it's in the investigation / really early in this. We don't know the whole extent of what was going on. I mean, it may be bigger than what this story says. So, but it's also in that innocent till proven guilty stage. And that's one of my fallbacks is I want to wait till someone gets convicted when Poggi goes to jail for this, then I know for, 100%, I'm probably in the 80 or 90% convinced on this. And the site isn't helping me much, but, right in the top here, 10 million crimes. Well, that sounds like one of those exaggerations. It could have been a million crime. I mean, we don't know exactly, and this sounds like maybe some exaggerations going on here. That's what's going off in my mind right now.
Yeah,
But-
we just don't know at this moment.
But-
Even if he goes to jail, that doesn't necessarily mean that what he's saying is wrong, because let's face it, the Catholic Church holds an awful lot of political power, and I'm sure they could just call up the Italian priests and say, or not the Italian priests, the Italian police, and just say, we want this guy gone, make him gone.
Right. I mean, if it's enough to get the police interested in looking into it, yes, then there is definitely something going on there. To the extent we don't, but I think to be on the safe side, yes, I'm sure that there's a prostitution ring going on, and it's nothing out of the ordinary. These are humans. We do stupid things for stupid reasons, and if we can get away with hiding behind our church to do this, it's gonna make it easier for them to do it. So how bad really was this, and how can we wake people up to say, it happens, people. You can't just deny or ignore. There's already been, here in this United States with all the pedophile priests we've got, we've got convictions, we've got arrests, we've got the various churches are now paying damages to these people. This is not, again, I imagine in some of these cases that the church claims no responsibility for it, but that's just come on, if they're paying, they're responsible.
Oh, of course they are.
So it's, don't delude yourself that the church isn't, involved. If they're paying, they're involved.
Yeah, they're just trying to get away with it.
Yeah. And it's, it's kind of the classic, you're going to deny until it finally becomes, oh, well, now we got to start admitting. And then now we have to admit, or, okay, now our guys are going to jail, we're being fined, all this stuff. Now we have to start admitting. And it's that cycle that the church has been going through.
Yeah, but even when they admit that they're doing things wrong, their followers don't believe it anyway. You could have Pope Francis come out right now and say, yes, I admit I've been raping altar boys for the last 40 years. Here is all the altar boys I've ever raped. They've all signed things that say that I've raped them. I'm admitting it in public. And you would have a huge portion of Catholics going, nope, don't believe it, never happened.
Yeah, that's just blind denial. I see it all the time, just people just denying facts. I mean, the flat earth people, we've got so much evidence that the earth is round, but there's still people who are convinced the earth is flat. And no matter what you tell them, they still believe that the earth is flat.
Yeah.
It's the true believer. It's that true believer. Could it be a syndrome? Could it be a mental illness or something? In the wake of overwhelming facts, still just deny deny things that are true. You're always going to have those people. It's a shame. It does seem like most Catholics who are still devout still hold to the belief that these priests can't possibly do this stuff, and
it's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah. And trying to hammer home, hey, this is happening. It's not going to affect them, and they're going to live their life in denial until the day they die.
Yeah.
It's a shame that no one. I'm happy to change my mind. I think you would also, if all of a sudden God did appear and to everybody. I think we'll change our minds.
Oh, sure.
But until that day happens, I'm convinced. I'm sure you're convinced that there's no God, and
no evidence.
No evidence of it, and until that day that proof comes up, I'd happily change my mind, and of course I might question that vision, but once that proves out, yeah, I can believe in God again. But until that day, I don't see that'll ever happen. And these people have to realize their priests are not gods. They're not infallible. They're human. They have human needs. They're never going to change their mind.
Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to change their mind no matter what happens. So we'll just have to wait till they die. Maybe we'll get an altogether better class of humans the next time around.
I hope.
All right, well, let's go ahead and head out to the next story.
Okay. And this is from the Huffington Post about Jimmy Carter. Women's plight perpetuated by world religions. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter says religious leaders, including those in Christianity and Islam, share the blame for the mistreatment of women across the world. The human rights activist said Friday religious authorities perpetuate misguided doctrines of male superiority from the Catholic Church forbidding women from becoming priests through some African cultures mutilating the genitals of young girls. Carter said the doctrines, which he describes as theologically indefensible, contribute to a political, social, and economic structure where political leaders passively accept violence against women, a worldwide sex slave trade, and inequality in the workplace and classroom. Bravo.
My response to that? Well, duh.
This is it. This is what should be on our mind. This is something that should be said by everybody. I don't know if Jimmy Carter sounds like, I don't know what religion. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb. I didn't look it up. I'm sure he has some religious convictions. I mean,
he and his wife were Southern Baptists, and they left the church because the Southern Baptists were so ridiculously sexist.
Okay, great.
What religion they have right now, I have no idea, but they have left the Baptists.
Excellent.
Hopefully, he just became an atheist, but, probably not.
Probably not, but still, I mean, because this is it. I mean, this is the crux of the problem, the inequality. I mean, we treat women, we treat minorities. I mean, I'm speaking as a white guy. We treat minorities, foreigners. I mean, I'm not going to say I do, but I think there's a general consensus that we have treated these people as subgroups, as beneath us type of thing. It's time that, the old school, it has to go. I mean, we're seeing cracks in, like last week in talking about, gay and lesbian rights, the DOMA and all that's happening last week. And I'm hoping to see more and more of this. And Jimmy Carter, I was never a big fan of the guy, but here's something that he said that I really do like, and I'm glad he said it.
Yeah, he wasn't a very good president. He was too much of a nice guy. But ever since he left the presidency, he's actually a pretty decent guy.
Right.
And I mean, I think he's right, but his attempt to say that all these abuses are theologically indefensible is completely meaningless. Who cares? I don't care if they are defensible under these stupid religions. They're not defensible in reality.
Right.
You get all these people who are saying women can't drive, women can't vote, women can't do this, women can't do that, women are not equal, we have to, we can rape women, and you see all that crap out of the Muslim religious all the time.
Right.
I don't give a crap even if you can pull out your Quran and say, see, it says right here that we can do this. Well, fuck you and fuck your Quran. Don't care.
Yeah. Right.
It's time we stop worrying about religion and start worrying about reality.
Right. But even just from, taking a jab at the religion itself perpetuating this, I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, it's another crack in the facade of this religious, this wall. I mean, men this side, women that side, we're more equal than them, that whole mentality. And hopefully someone within these religions are either going to say, hey, yeah, he's right. We're perpetuating, and it's not going to happen, but it'd be nice if they say, hey, we are perpetuating outdated ideas, dogmas, that type of thing. So,
but they'll never do that. I mean, Carter pointed out that back in the early Christian church, they did have female preachers and all that kind of stuff. But then the Catholic Church came along and it wanted to be a good old boy club. And so it introduced all of these different concepts. And that's why things are the way they are today. And they're never going to change because they benefit from keeping it the way that it is.
Right. Oh,
the same reason they will never advocate for gay marriage, that they'll never advocate for equality. They benefit by staying the way that they are.
But I think holding on to those ideas, and it kind of goes back to my thought that, in order for these religions to survive, they're going to have to change. If they want to survive.
I don't want them to survive.
I don't want them either, but I'm taking the other side's point is, it's supposed to be all about praising God. So
but it's not. It's not.
Right. It's almost proving the point that, hey, we're here to praise God and we're going to worship him in our way, him or her, whatever the state may be. Trying to keep that part going, you're going to have to change. And if they're not changing, that means we're not dealing with religions. We're dealing with dictatorships. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, but you have to remember, I mean, again, looking at it from their side, assuming that they really take this crap seriously, and I sort of doubt that, but assuming they take any of the things that they say seriously, they honestly believe that the way they are doing things is the way that God wants them to do things. They're not saying, we're doing this because this is what we want, because this is what God wants, right. And therefore we will never change, because change implies that we no longer want to do things that God wants us to do.
Right. But you know what? But that's based on what they've made, their interpretation of what their Bible, Quran, whatever has told them. They can sit down, have a big conference, reread their Bible and says, oh yeah, now we can do this. We can allow this.
Yeah, but that's not how religion works.
It is. Right.
This is the way that it is. This is the way it'll always be. And there's no way I will ever change because, I can't do that.
And that's, yeah. And you know what? I mean, I'm offering to those within religion to say, here's what you could do. But, if it's not going to happen, then, bye-bye guys, you're gone, because change happens. I mean, it's, again, the world changes as we learn more, as we understand more, as the laws change and more people are given rights, rights are not being curtailed, as we learn more and become more, worldly, as we understand the universe better, our ideas, our base concepts are changing, and the church isn't changing in step. If they want to survive, they gotta start saying, okay, no more of this women have to cover themselves and stuff like that. It's, they'll have to, they gotta make those changes. If not, they're gonna become irrelevant, and people are gonna realize that and leave the churches. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, but again, the problem is they are not trying to survive just to survive. They're holding a position that they think is absolutely true. Nothing can ever change that position, and whether they survive or not is irrelevant so long as they keep holding on to their truth. Yes, it's going to kill them in the real world, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
but,
I
would not have any respect for any religious institution that just went out, took a measure of which way the wind was blowing and just said, well, we'll go that way now.
Well, you're right. You're definitely right on that. I mean, these churches will never change because they base their whole infrastructure, their whole belief systems on this old outdated stuff. So as, if they don't want to change, hey, more power to them. That means they go away faster.
Yeah, I give them a little bit more respect because they don't change. And the good thing is that they just go away.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump to the next story.
Navina Shine calls herself a breatharian, a sun gazer. This means she's doing this thing where she's trying to survive 4 to 6 months on nothing but sunlight, air, and water. On her website, she said, quote, throughout history, there have been many people who have claimed this capacity. Yogis have also claimed the ability to live on light. Apparently, around 40,000 people are now living on light. She lives in Seattle, by the way. So there are many crazy diet philosophies out there, but this one's a little dangerous. SeattleGlobalist.com reported that upwards of 4 breatharians have died during their attempts to live only on sunlight. So far, Shine's made it 30 days, and she's already 20 pounds lighter. She says, I suspect this might be the point where my body decides either to find and hook into the source where it's able to live on light or continue to consume the body for sustenance. We shall see. And apparently we can see too, because she set up 8 cameras in her controlled environment to prove that she's not cheating. It should be said that Shine believes that what she is doing is historical, the beginning of a new future.
Washington resident Navina Shine has given up her quest to find out if people can live on sunlight. In the 46 days since she started the experiment, she lost 20% of her body weight, dropping from 159 pounds to 126 pounds. She subsisted only on water and tea with a splash of milk, but in her final days took to adding a packet of vitamin powder to her water. She refuses to consider her experiment a failure, though. She says she just can't afford to go on. What do you mean you can't afford to go on? How much money is this costing you not to eat? Now you're going to have to buy food. Huh?
Yeah. I wish I could understand why someone would decide to live, and we're talking trying to subsist off of sunlight, just sunlight, and because some yogi from India says that he can go days without food, and people don't photosynthesize.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sorry. Humans cannot do that. We do not have chlorophyll.
Right. We don't grow roots to get our water from the ground. We don't photosynthesize. And then she realizes it's not working. Just watering tea with a splash of milk. Okay. Losing 20% of her body weight.
She said that if she got below 130 pounds, she was going to stop, which exactly what she did. But lady, the fact that you got down to 130 pounds means something was not working right.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember when I first heard about this concept. And I want to say it was some kind of, I want to say it's something that came out of one of the Indian cults. I don't know, I shouldn't say cults, but
yeah, they're all cults.
Yeah, but yeah. And it was like, come on, there was something more to her doing this than just, oh, this sounds like a good idea. I mean,
she was after money. She went out, she maxed all of her credit cards to put in all this monitoring equipment in her trailer so that people could see she wasn't eating, and then she was expecting lots and lots and lots of people to come and pay her through her website, and nobody did. And now she's going, well, I'm going to stop now because my financial experiment is a failure. That's what it's about. Come on.
Possibly, but there's people who definitely believe this stuff,
but every single time anybody does this, it's a failure. No one has ever shown the ability to do this, and they've had lots and lots of times where they've had yogis come out and try this, and then they catch them eating Snickers bars and all this other stuff. These people have been caught being complete frauds, and people keep following them.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. And I wish I could understand the psychology that goes into all this, because people, we're fooled by magic.
I'm not.
Well, it's neat. My grandfather was I don't know if I ever mentioned this. He was maybe I did. I vaguely remember, but he knew all the, how to pick pockets. He was a con man, I guess. On my dad's birth certificate, it says right there he was a bookmaker in a gambling casino. And he knew all the scams, the marks, and all that kind of stuff. When a guy comes in with a lot of money, he gets marked, and next thing you know, every pickpocket, every scam. If you ever seen that show, Carnival on HBO.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing, and we convince ourselves, and it's all, all the sleight of hand, 3-card Monte, all those games. Your mind can be tricked, and this is someone who's been tricked to believe that this can work, and thinking that she is capable of doing that. And I don't think it was the money involved, but I think she really believed that I'm the one who's going to pull this off. I'm the one who's going to win Randy's millions type of thing. So she went and did it. I can't fault her for doing it, but then she realizes this ain't happening. She's losing all this weight. No one's really taking her serious. All she's doing is, going on a hunger strike, basically. It's maybe the only people who watch were wanting to see when she keeled over dead from starvation. But, it's just how our brains work. And I'm sure she was convinced that she would be the one who would pull it off.
Yeah, but unfortunately, most people, I would say, most rational people, if they did believe this and they did go through this experiment and they ended up failing, they would be saying, well, hey, maybe there's something wrong with the belief, that I can live on air. maybe there's something wrong with this whole idea. They would not be saying, well, I'm going to blame all the haters for stopping me, or all that, she's looking for excuses for why her beliefs didn't come true. And this is very true among most theists, that when things just don't work out the way they think they should, they look for excuses. They don't just go, oh, I was just wrong all along.
Right. Oh yeah, that's it. I mean, and that's what what we see here. She's convinced. I mean, I'm convinced that she's convinced that she can pull this off. But she's just, again, it's that denial block with, people saying, no, you can't do that. And, here, you just proved it. And it's like, oh no, then blame someone else. Blame the bad vibes from, the news crews that interviewed her. Blame the bad vibes from the town next door, or, down the road. It's not that, what she believes to be true. I mean, a tornado goes through Oklahoma town. It's not the fact that it was just bad luck and nasty weather. It's the homosexuals in, fighting our wars. I mean, it has nothing to do with, just a natural event. It's because God is looking down on us because we allow gays in the military,
Yeah, but when those tornadoes come through and take out churches, they don't mention that part. Apparently God is pissed off at your churches, but they don't talk about that part because it doesn't fit in with their little story.
Right, but then they just say, oh, they just ignore that. That's the mindset. It's like, it isn't a natural occurrence. Tornadoes happen in Oklahoma every year. I don't know what the counts are or the number, but they happen. They happen all across the United States, primarily in the South. I mean, Illinois has had its share. You got earthquakes in California. Those happen every day. But to point out that this earthquake was caused by God because it destroyed that town because California turned down Prop 8 or whatever, whatever the excuse is, it's just that it's not the fact that it was a natural occurring event. It's God did that. And you can't convince them otherwise. And then trying to get it through their heads. No. You're dealing with a natural occurring event. This lady, you don't eat, you're going to lose weight, you're going to be in trouble, and rational people are going to say you're goofy, what you're doing is stupid.
Well, yeah, this is just another example of what happens when you're not a rational person.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the problem with all of these things, the problem with all religion, the problem with all the crazy crap that goes on in the planet, is that you've got a bunch of people who don't understand how to be rational. They don't understand how to think about things. They only understand how to feel about things.
Right.
I don't know. These people just piss me off. I'd honestly rather she just died. I mean, that sounds cruel, but, to have her just call it off and go, well, it still works, but I'm just stopping for this excuse. No, I'd rather you just don't eat and keel over and then prove to everybody that you can't live on air.
Right.
But no, we don't get that. It's too cruel.
Yeah, that's just, it's an old lady, and who knows, maybe she's, I don't want to say anything, maybe she's on, or in that early Alzheimer stage or whatever. It's just, I don't know.
I don't know. Stupid people are stupid.
Yeah. And every year a new batch comes around, so, this won't be the first, it won't be the last.
Well, luckily, the new batch has been largely, they're still stupid, but they're stupid about other things, and most of this religious crap is starting to fade.
Yeah.
All right, well, why don't you take your last story?
Faith no more. Atheists in Florida have erected a monument to non-belief in God, just meters away from a slab engraved with the 10 Commandments. The atheists had wanted the Christian monument removed, but said if you can't beat them, join them, and erected a bench of their own. They were greeted by Christian country music blasted from passing cars.
Okay, for my last story. Atheists unveil monument by 10 Commandments. This is in Stark, Florida. A group of atheists unveiled a monument to their non-belief in God on Saturday to sit alongside a granite slab that lists the Ten Commandments in front of the Bradford County Courthouse. As a small group of protesters blasted Christian country music and waved "Honk for Jesus" signs, the atheists celebrated what they believe is the first atheist monument allowed on government property in the United States. When you look at this monument, the first thing you'll notice is that it has a function. Atheists are about the real and physical, so we selected to place this monument in the form of a bench, said David Silverman, president of the American Atheists. It also serves another function to counter the religious monument that the New Jersey-based group wanted removed. It's a case of if you can't beat them, join them. And this story I got kind of mixed opinions on. One, yeah, I think it's cool that getting some type of non-religion monument to counterpose a religious, I mean, that's okay. But, you know, the concept of atheist building monuments sounds like it's being made out to be a religious monument. It's just our atheists as a religion, which is, you talk to any real atheist, atheism is not a religion. It's the antithesis of religion. It has nothing to do with religion.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm wondering if this is one of those double-edged sword deals, you know. Yeah, we need to get our message out, you know, that, hey, there's alternatives to your, you know, your black magic mumbo jumbo religion. You know, you don't have to believe in this invisible sky creature. You can, you know, you don't have to believe in anything, you know, but you can still be a moral, rational person without religion.
Right. I mean, my only concern is I'm just not sure how comfortable I am having monument warfare. You know, we'd come up with a response to a monument that's existing, then the religious come back and make another monument to respond to our monument, and then we make another monument to respond to their monument that's responding to our monument, and it all gets kind of stupid.
Right.
You know, to be perfectly honest, I'd rather have no monuments. We don't need a monument to religion. You know, if they want to put something up for a historical event, cool, knock yourself out. The other thing, and I don't know if you've seen some of these signs that they had hanging around. They had signs saying the South is a Christian nation. Well, dumb shit. The South is not a nation. You lost the fricking Civil War. Figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like, are you people just that damn stupid?
I would love to say they have to be. They've had to been dropped on their heads as kids. It's the growing up in the white supremacy, religion, everything. Check your intelligence at the door.
Well, they don't have any intelligence.
Well, that's what I mean. Leave it behind.
Hey, every time one of these southern states wants to secede, I say, go for it. By all means, leave. But, oh wait, the land is ours. We built the roads. We built the infrastructure. We built everything. Everything in that land is ours. So you guys want to secede? Turn around and start walking into the sea. Go find yourself a country that you can call your own, because you sure as hell don't want ours. And take Rick Perry with you.
Please.
Please.
Anything. Yeah, because I was looking around. There was like I think there's supposed to be a campaign to fly banners about atheist, you know, pro-atheist here on the 4th of July. I've seen that's not so bad. I think building churches, or whether it's that meeting hall or whatever, this atheist thing that they built, and you know, it kind of turns us into what we're arguing against.
Yeah, I have a major problem with them doing all the billboards, all the churches, the atheist political party, all this other crap. It's like, guys, we need to realize that atheism means jack squat. It is nothing. It is the non-belief in God's end of story.
Right.
And to try to keep turning it into something else, you know, atheism plus something, you know.
Right.
Let's ignore the whole atheism plus thing, but, you know, atheism plus politics, atheism plus this, that, the other, atheism plus a social gathering place. That's not atheism. That's something different. You want to go do something different? Knock yourselves out. Go do something different. Just don't call it atheism.
Yeah. because then it gives the other side ammunition to say, hey, look at, but they're behaving like a church. They're working at, they're doing this like a religion. I mean, it's just an atheist religion, which it isn't. Atheism is not a religion at all. It's it's just, we don't believe in God, but it's giving them the ability to say, well, wait a minute, you're acting very much like a religion. And that's something I'm totally against.
Yeah, same here. I cannot stand that. It pisses me off to no end. Now, the one nice thing about this monument is it, from what I've seen of it, I've only seen pictures, obviously, but the only thing I've seen on it so far is the quote from Washington from the Treaty of Tripoli that says the U.S. is not a Christian nation. If that's what all they're saying on it, that's entirely fine. As long as they're not stamping on it, come be an atheist, join the club. That kind of crap, please, don't do that. You're not helping anybody.
Right.
My real concern right now, how long do you think it's going to be until this monument gets defaced?
I think it probably already has.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Probably within 24 hours of its unveiling, it's probably got something splashed over it or something.
They're painting crosses all over it. I'm waiting for somebody to drive a car over it and knock it off. And that's going to be a whole bunch more money to replace, and they're just going to keep doing it because religious people are fucktards. But then again, I've seen atheists doing the same things, too, where they've been out defacing religious monuments.
Yeah, there's no place for that. I mean...
There never should be.
Yeah, I mean, you're just lowering yourself to them, if you want to scratch out stuff on a monument somewhere... you're not doing your cause any good. You're just, making out yourself and what you stand for is a bunch of thugs, and, rational people don't take kindly to that. And
yeah, but you got to remember a lot of the religious are just a bunch of thugs.
Exactly.
That's how they act.
And that's what we want them to be, and keep them as thugs so we can say, hey, we're not the ones doing this. We're not the ones defacing crosses or knocking down 10 Commandment monuments. You're the ones that are doing this. You're the ones knocking down or defacing pro-atheism stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, we still have enough cases where people are going out and defacing churches and all that stuff where, those people, if I saw an atheist, if I saw Richard Dawkins going out doing that, I'd have him in jail in a minute.
Right. And
that's not something anybody should stand up for.
Right. But even then, these are, Christians defacing other Christian churches. I mean, we want them to be doing that kind of stupid stuff, not us.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We're not that low and shallow and uncomfortable with our beliefs that we have to pick on someone else's because they have such and such beliefs. That's totally beneath the whole concept of atheism, I think.
It should be. Whether it actually is or not, people are people and they're going to be stupid. But, I'm of the mind that we should take all these stupid people who are the ones that are doing all the stupid crap and creating all the problems within atheism. I think we should just take them and eject them from the movement. I can't stop you from being an atheist, but I can sure as hell stop you from attending conferences. I can stop you from being recognized as part of the atheist movement.
Yeah.
We can say, we have nothing to do with you people. Go away.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we're not going to just see a ton of these monuments popping up all over the place in front of every courthouse in the country, because that's pointless.
Pointless, expensive, just asking trouble type of stuff.
Yeah. We deserve better.
Yeah.
We should be better.
We should be better. Yeah.
Too bad so many of us aren't.
I guess I don't want to condone it, getting worked up over things and taking it out on the other side type of thing. But it doesn't serve the cause any good, and it does more damage to the cause than it does good. It's just a shame that people don't understand that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you have a lot of people who they've got a very vocal following, and so they go out there and do something stupid, and they've got a whole bunch of people behind them cheering them on. It's a lot of peer pressure stuff.
Yeah.
And, they don't really care if anybody tells them they're being sick, sadistic fucks. They just care that they're getting their fan group happy.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump to the main event.
This is the main event.
Last week, we touched on a fact that honestly surprised me. 25% of the people in the American Armed Services report having no religion. Granted, that is pretty much in line with the religious makeup of the nation, but the military has traditionally been extremely religious and overwhelmingly far right-wing. With that in mind, the fact that this is the 4th of July, we thought we'd take a few minutes to talk about our men and women in uniform, religion, and how we can best serve their needs. Are you as surprised as I am that there's that many non-religious people in the military?
Not really. I mean, certainly our military is it's about being volunteer. It's going to be a cross-section of all different beliefs, non-beliefs, that type of thing. So 25% seems to be maybe low, but does sound like part of a good cross-section, representative of the cross-section of what the United States represents. So
yeah, but you don't really find that in the military. That's the problem. It's never been a cross-section of the U.S. It's been usually the ultra-religious people who are going into the military to fight for God and country. It hasn't been just your regular Joe Schmo.
I mean, when it was a draft and volunteer, it's hard to say. I mean, definitely when there was crisis, Second World War, even Vietnam early on, there were volunteers when, we were fighting communists. In the Second World War, it was the Nazis. At the time, and what we understood, the war was about. We were protecting our homes. And even today, I think a lot of people who do join the military, decide, being voluntary, one, it's to get an education. That seems to be a bigger thing nowadays. Go in and get an education. But it's also to serve your country. There's the extra stuff that goes with it. It being a cross-section, I think it's just that early on, atheism was not, you didn't like to say that you were an atheist, especially in the old Cold War days. Atheism was associated with communists. So you kept your mouth shut, you went along with, you just pick the religion, or you pick something that you can deal with, and just kind of went with the flow type of thing, as opposed to saying, oh, I'm an atheist, and automatically being accused of being a communist. I kind of do believe that the military in general has been a cross-section of America. It's just that depending on the times you're talking about, how much of that they would actually admit to, I guess.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Yeah, because, you didn't want to be labeled a homosexual in the Army unless you wanted to get out. That type of thing. You stayed in the closet, you did your tours, and then it was over with. You just didn't admit to being something or another.
Yeah, even right now, atheists going into the military, they have to actually know the regulation and demand that they be listed as atheists. Religious recruiters will actually go and lie to them and tell them they cannot be listed as atheists, and they'll try to make them just be listed as other, or they'll make them pick some religious denomination or whatever, when the law has always said that you can be listed as an atheist, and they just have never wanted atheists to be that large of a demographic, I guess.
Probably, yeah.
I think it's funny that now dog tags can say anything you want. So there's a lot of atheists out there putting like Jedi or flying spaghetti monsterist on their dog tags because, there's nothing official about that. You could make anything you wanted to and just stick it on there, Invisible pink unicornist.
Right.
I don't know. What would you want to put on there?
I'd go with Jedi because there seems to be a bunch that they call themselves Jedis in Canada. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would put down rationalist, but that's just me.
Because it totally means nothing to me. I could probably put atheist on there, but I like to keep people guessing sometimes.
Well, yeah. My only concern with putting atheist on there is what happens with, if you've been injured and you're unconscious and the religious fucktard comes along and looks at your dog tag and says, well, he's an atheist, I'm not going to help him.
You would hope that...
I could see that happening. And you could too.
I could, but you know what? I've read enough histories. It seems to be a common denominator that when the shit starts hitting, bombs exploding around you, little chunks of lead flying over your head, a lot of things go out the window, and people will do things that totally is opposite of what you would think they would do. When I read about Tarawa, this was in the Second World War. Tarawa was one of the uglier landings against the Japanese. The Japanese were ruthless. They knew how to fight. And trying to fight someone in a defensive position is suicide. I mean, if you've seen Saving Private Ryan, the hitting of Omaha Beach. Tarawa was probably 10 times worse than that, what you saw on the screen. I mean, you couldn't lift your head. Your helmet would get knocked off by a bullet if it didn't go through and took the top of your head off. And you've got these battle-hardened Marines hitting Tarawa and getting hit and then crying for their mothers. That's all these guys heard, was these guys dying around you, screaming for their mothers, their fathers. They weren't screaming for God. They were screaming for their mothers.
Well, yeah, because their mothers are at least real.
Yeah. I think, I forget exactly where there was a point where the Marines just went right into it was literally a setup where, I mean, this crossfire, there was no place, where the blood or the sand was just so blood soaked. I mean, these guys were coming off red. I mean, bright red off the beaches just from the blood that was soaking into the sand. I mean, there were guys going everywhere, trying to rescue. They were trying to pull people out of line of fire. A lot of things just went out the window at that point. And I believe that when you're in that situation, in a firefight, or you're in a war, it don't matter if you're gay, if you're black, white, male, female, Mexican, whatever. All that shit goes out the window, and all you want to do is help that person out to get them out of harm's way, or hopefully, and you would hope that your people next to you are going to get you out of harm's way, and they will do that.
Yeah.
That's just the amazing thing. All the sensibility goes out the window, and, you turn into humans. It's like you forget everything, all the bullshit that goes into your life. Everything gets stripped away, and you turn into humans, and you start helping everybody. They're not looking at dog tags to see if you're atheist or, Baptist or whatever. I'm only going to say Baptists, no. They're helping everybody out, and it's, all those rules go out the window, and that's the way I see it. And it's only this, once you let the generals, and it's the same as, the hierarchy that, when you get into the colonels and the generals, and when they start talking about this stuff, they're doing it like politicians. They turn, that's what they are. They're politicians. The foot soldiers don't give a shit about who's who out there. All they want is that the guy to your left and the guy to your right is looking out for you, and you're looking out for the guys to either side of you.
Well, that only counts really when you're in direct combat, Once the combat is over and you're out there trying to clean up the mess, that's more what I was talking about. That's when the little group, the little group clicky things, kind of come back into play.
Yeah, it might, but still, it's twisted bodies, the dead, the dying. People are doing everything possible to save lives afterwards, and they they even help the enemy. They will, the Americans were, quite often would try to save the life of people who were just trying to kill them, and they were dying. It's when you're in that situation, all the rules get thrown out. It's just once you step away and you go back to home base or you go back to the Pentagon, then the bullshit comes back.
Right, right.
My brother was over there in Afghanistan, and I'm sure he never thought much about who was who over there. Just they were looking out after each other. My brother, well, he was in the Air Force. He was like a medical, I forget exactly, but he would have to do street patrols and stuff like that, or guard construction sites and stuff like that. And I don't think he really cared much what religion everyone was there in his group. I mean, fortunately, I guess I guess he lucked out and never got shot at. But I would think the second the shit happens, yeah, all those rules would go out the door.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's kind of like the whole atheists in foxholes thing,
Right.
which I think somebody came up with a really interesting take on that, which is there's only atheists in foxholes because anybody who actually believes in God, they think that they're going to be protected by God. Therefore, they should be out rushing the enemy. It's only the people who actually care about not dying who are in the foxhole in the first place.
That's a good point.
Yeah, if you think God's on your side, you're going to be out there rushing the enemy, trying to win the war. You're not going to be in there saving your own life because you think you're going to paradise anyway.
Right. I thought it was interesting. Again, the Battle of Rorke's Drift, the Zulu Wars. The Zulu fighters, they were never afraid of the repeating rifle because they didn't have the concept of bullets going through people. They were impervious to bullets. They definitely had issues going up against the shorts. They used a short spear type thing, kind of like it was like a foot long blade. They and then kind of like the Romans, they'd hold their shield up and then use the spear as a kind of like a sword. That they didn't like, but they had no issue with running up to guys shooting at you with repeating rifles.
Well, I would say up until the point where they saw what they could do.
They saw what they could do. That when Isanawanda, the battle of Chelmsford's, the column got cut up. They lost like 100. The Quechueo's army had lost like 100 to the rifles, and then when they went up against Rorke's Drift, I forget the exact numbers. There was probably maybe a couple thousand who got cut down. But if you ever saw the movies, or don't believe what you see in that movie, except there were some neat little things like the counting. There was a scene where they would go up and they were banging the shields and getting the soldiers to open fire on them. They had no problem. They didn't have no issue doing that and getting shot at by repeating rifles because, again, they had no fear of those bullets. And it's really weird. And eventually, after the Battle of Rorke's Drift, then they started getting a more healthier respect for the. Well, it's mostly. Well, they did have respect for British troops in fortification, but this group after the massacre at Isandawanda, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That seems about what everyone pronounces it. There was a couple groups of Zulus that decided to join in and wanted to get a piece of the British, and decided to attack Rorke's Drift. But they were all, Quechueo was concerned about, and actually when he would attack, he would try to attack moving columns, not stationary groups, because if they can, or at least try to attack stationary groups fast so they don't form up squares. I don't know if you ever heard that term.
Oh yeah.
You know, to set up a defensive square, because then it was game over. They would have to retreat. Quechueo understood, don't fight British in fortifications. These other groups didn't when they attacked Rorke's Drift, and Rorke's Drift had time to build a really quick fortification. So, a kind of a neat little history things. But these, it's that concept of going up against bullets, believing that they would just pass right through you and wouldn't do any harm.
Yeah, it comes off as pretty, religious and delusional and stuff, which
right.
a lot of it was actually.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now that we're seeing atheism grow at such a fast rate, do you think that the problems that we've seen in the military are going to persist for much longer, or do we think the religious are just never going to give up? Or,
well, I think there's going to be more. I mean, 'cause there has to be some kind of like major confrontation. I think there's got to be. Right now, it's been kind of lackluster. Nothing's been hitting my radar on this. I mean, it always seems to be the don't ask, don't tell side of things. I think there's going to be something like that before any type of resolution in the acceptance of, again, I think the acceptance of atheists are more from old timers, the old guard. I don't know if that's the good term for it, but that has to go away. And I think there's going to be some type of confrontation on that. I don't see that has happened yet.
I don't think it can happen, to be really honest. I mean, it's like with, my friend's father was in the military back in the 50s, back when they were doing, when they were desegregating the military. And they basically went in and they told all the people, you are going to put up with the black soldiers and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's the end of that. And it was amazing how many black soldiers ended up, wrapped up in rugs, falling down stairs over and over and over. And everybody would just kind of said, yeah, well, that's just the way it is. But we're not really seeing that right now with, with atheists, where you're not really seeing the theists going out and, making violent physical threats against atheists or attacking atheists or anything like that. Now, I know things have changed since the 50s in the military, but do we think that anything like that is going to happen, any kind of violent outburst or, backlash against the atheists, or do we think that it's just something that's going to fade away over time as, maybe 50 to 60% of the military becomes atheists?
Yeah, like I said, it would be nice if that happened, kind of quietly and just accepting. Maybe they've learned from dealing with the homosexual issue in the military that to create a situation does more harm than good. I hope. I would like to believe that, but I don't have that much faith in anybody to do that. More than likely, it's going to come out of like the Jerry Falwells and the Pat Robertsons are going to say, well, we need to kick the atheists out of the military. That going to that, and it may be from externally trying to force the military to curtail or do something with atheists, as opposed to the military itself. I'm hoping that don't ask, don't tell left a bad taste in their mouth over what happened, having to be sitting in front of Congress explaining your policies and things like that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of fundamentalists in the military, and they fought against don't ask, don't tell. They're probably still fighting against it. They're still out there arguing that we should not have gays in the military because
Right.
Their beliefs do not allow them to think otherwise. I'm sure they feel just about as strongly toward the atheists.
Probably, and that's why I'm thinking there's got to be some confrontation coming up. I mean, it isn't there yet. Maybe they're comfortable with the fact of only 25% atheist, but that number's growing. It's going to grow. It's going to be a reflection of the population, since based on my contention that it's what's happening. Yeah, there's going to be confrontation. There might be some issues. It may get, congressional hearings on it. I want to say that's going to happen. That's got to happen, or that's going to happen. Just a off the wall prediction. I'm not making, because that seems to be the way things work. You don't get change without some type of confrontation.
Yeah, well, at least when you had the gays issue, there weren't that many gays in the military. I mean, by percentage, there was probably maybe 10% if you just
Right.
stay with what's in the general population. But they didn't really have any open organizations because they couldn't be open about their sexual orientation, whereas atheists have lots and lots of non-religious organizations that represent them. So it's not as easy to just go after that stray atheist in your battalion, like it was to go after that stray gay person in your battalion.
True.
You've got tons of lawyers backing them up if you step out of line and do anything.
Right. I can believe that. I can be behind that, and I'm sure the ACLU, they happily pick up whatever case like that. I mean, Did they ever pick up any of the gay cases? I wonder. I didn't really follow. Don't ask, don't tell. I know it was, but I knew that it was a pretty big confrontation over that and went on for years. I'm just of the feeling there's got to be a confrontation, and maybe it does come down to a court case or something like that. But
yeah, I'm hoping that there is no court case because they don't need one because nobody really bothers to do it. You know, somebody would have to bring a court case in order for there to be one. Like, you know, the military atheists, they're a lot bigger than most of the people out there who might want to bring a case.
Right.
Their lawyers are bigger than your lawyers.
Yeah, it's the cynic in me is saying that. But I think there might be a confrontation. That's because it just seems to be the way things happen, you know. When you try to make some kind of change, civil rights was all, you know, I mean, women in the military. I mean, there's been that debate. Do we put women in combat positions?
Yeah, but they're losing that one too.
Right. But it's going to be, it's become confrontational. I want to say that atheism, there's going to be something happening there, confrontational. Maybe not as bad, because when I see racial segregation during up to the 50s, the women in military, the gays, these are really the old concepts dying, you know, in their death throes. And, you know, so it's going to be confrontational. You're going to get some general who is going to oppose gays in the military or against women in the military. You're always going to get those. I think there's going to be those who don't feel that atheists have a place in the military. There's, you know, conscientious objectors. I haven't really looked into those either. Those have been an issue with the military. So I want to say there's going to be something. I mean, whether it's big or small, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah, as long as the religious lose, that's all I care about.
And that's what's going to happen. They will lose.
But that's the thing. They're losing at everything. If you look around at not just the military, but everywhere, the religious are just losing across the board on everything.
Yes. And I love being in this time watching that happen.
Yeah, same here. All right, well, you think that's enough for the week?
I think so.
Yeah, we got to get ready and go shoot fireworks and stuff. So.
Cool. I'm going to be kicking back, probably watching the fireworks from my neighbors. Will be setting off their fireworks. I'm surprised they haven't started already.
Yeah, well, it really sucks because my mother just sold her house and she's moving to someplace else that doesn't allow fireworks. She lived in one of the few cities that still allows them. So my kids are no longer going to be able to shoot off fireworks every year. This is the last year.
Oh.
Really effing sucks. I hate this stupid liberal protect you from yourself crap.
I mean, aren't they more worried about forest or brush fires from fireworks out your way?
It's not really a problem. I mean, it's mostly the people shooting off bottle rockets and all kinds of illegal stuff. I mean, that's really the biggest problem that anybody usually has. But we never do that. We do the safe and reasonably sane stuff. But this is the last year. I'm really depressed.
Yeah.
And like 40 years in a row. Oh well. There was one last thing I wanted to add. Doing a weekly podcast, it's difficult to come up with fun and interesting things to talk about episode after episode after episode. So we're always looking for suggestions. What would you like us to rant about? Is there anything you want to hear? Don't want to hear? We're like bulldogs. Aim us at something and we'll attack it. Let us know and maybe your suggestion will make it on the air. All right, well, that's our show for the week. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with another fun-filled episode in another 7 days. Make sure you tell your friends about us. We don't even mind if you tell your enemies about us. Just tell somebody about us. And until next week, take care. You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report podcast with your hosts, Cephus and Mike. You can follow us on Twitter respectively at Bitchspot1 or at JDRipper1962. Please visit our website, at report.jdragononline.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The B-Spot Report. We're also on Google+, iTunes, and YouTube. Those links are on our website. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us via email at report@jdragononline.com. Comments, ideas, and suggestions are always welcome. We'll be back next week with another fun and fact-filled episode. Please tune in again.